you've heard the saying, throwing away food is like stealing from the poor. Well, Food Forward SA is making a call to farmers, manufacturers and retailers to donate their surplus food for flood relief victims in KwaZulu-Natal. Over 13,000 households have been affected. Joining me now from Cape Town is the NGO's Managing Director, Andy du Plessis. Andy, thank you so much for your time this evening. We were just chatting before we went on air. The last time we spoke, we were in crisis mode as well. It was in hard lockdown, I believe, 2020, and you and your team were making miracles happen by feeding people who needed the most, as the impact of hard lockdown was really hitting families in being able to put food in their bellies. And here we sit 2 years later. The pandemic isn't over, but this is another massive and urgent crisis that South Africa is facing. What is your team on the ground experiencing and seeing as we speak? I believe that you're working in areas and communities in Ntuzuma, Pinetown, Umlazi, Inanda and Phoenix. Talk to me about what your team is telling you on the ground there.
Evening, Marcel, and thank you very much for having us. Absolutely. I must say, from the videos and the photos that I've seen, it's just horrendous, the kind of hardship that KZN is experiencing at this time, and our hearts go out to the people that are left homeless and those that have lost loved ones. We've deployed a number of staff to join our Durban staff there to make sure that we ramp up support as soon as possible. So, as you've mentioned, the areas that we are working in, we've identified 26 community halls that are housing displaced people, and so far we've been able to reach, as of today, 15 of those 26 community halls, and as the days progress, we are reaching more, and as accessibility becomes more available for our trucks, we are reaching more of those halls. So we're making sure that there's at least one daily meal, along with snacks like yogurts and hygiene items as well, and milk to make sure that they have tea and coffee to keep them warm, and just to make sure that they understand that someone is there to support them. There's no other organizations working in those communities able to reach them, and we're making sure that on the ground we are providing food to those organizations. Then in other communities that are also affected, that are not close to the community halls, we've got about 10 of our large non-profit organizations that are cooking food on our behalf, and they are providing food to people that are vulnerable, people that have lost their jobs because businesses are closed, and people that are just left destitute. And that will continue to increase, and we're seeing daily the amount of, we're being inundated with calls for support for food provisions, because thousands of people are left vulnerable at present.
Now, what I've always admired about the work that your team does is the logistics that it takes to do what you do. You're the missing link between retailers and farmers who perhaps have the surplus food but have no way of making sure it gets to the people who need it, and you're the link between them and either communities or organizations who are able to reach those who need it most. When you're faced with a crisis like we're seeing in KZN, where many thousands of people are left with absolutely nothing, there must be a quick meeting or important talks that you have about what is needed where. Do you send food packages, or do you have to make a plan for cooked meals? Talk to me about the logistics your teams are facing in meeting the need of the people in KZN right now.
So the first thing we have to do the moment a crisis or a disaster like this occurs is to make sure that we understand the local landscape, what the impact is on road infrastructure, water and electricity, and whether there's accessibility for our trucks to get there. By that time, we would have communicated with the disaster management teams. So, for example, in KZN, we are in regular contact throughout the day with the Joint Operations Center of Disaster Management, making sure that communities are safe to go into, that roads are accessible, and exactly where the community halls are, so that we can take food provisions there. Then we have our own fleet of trucks, 14-ton, 20-ton, 8-ton trucks, to be able to collect food from farmers, wholesalers, retailers and manufacturers. And as a crisis like this, you know, we put out a call to action, and we've had an overwhelming response from companies like Pick n Pay, Tiger Brands, Massmart, the Do More Foundation, Lactulus, and Food Lovers Market that have already donated, PepsiCo as well, that have donated huge amounts of food supplies, for us, in addition to some financial donations, thankfully, from CHEP and the IDC and F&B Philanthropy. And so we make sure that on the ground we understand what the needs are exactly, how many numbers we're talking about. And our first response is always to prepare warm meals, to make sure one of two things happen. One, that there immediately is food for those people to eat so that they have something nutritious to be able to eat. But the second thing is also we can't just drop food off and we don't understand the traceability of what happens with that food. As we know, there are a number of things that have happened in other areas affecting other organizations, and we want to make sure that the food provisions we provide to each of those community halls, for example, that food is consumed on site, ready to eat, and that the snacks are there ready to eat, and making sure that that food gets eaten and not taken away by nefarious activities that we are not aware of. So we have people on the ground in the community making sure that we serve the people, that they get the meal, and we can be assured that people are getting a meal every single day, which is what's needed at this time. We are also providing huge amounts of hygiene products, nappies for the babies, and toiletries and detergents and personal hygiene items in the community halls to make sure that those needs are also met. So it's quite a massive operation. It requires a huge amount of coordination to make sure that we are on the ground and that people get the food they need when they need it.
Just very quickly, Andy, before I let you go, we heard from Give to the Givers today that, and it's what many of us have been expecting when you look at what has happened in KZN, that the numbers that officially are being reported, but the numbers of people whose lives have been lost, lives that are unaccounted for, and families and children who have been left destitute by these floods, they believe are highly underreported. Is that the understanding that you're having when you're getting these reports every day from your team on the ground as well? That we haven't fully understood the depth and the breadth of the impact of this devastation on the people of KZN?
Absolutely, we totally agree with that assessment. We do believe that the Disaster Management's Joint Operations Center is still trying to get to grips with the devastation, with the impact, with the breadth of this crisis. And so we also feel that there's huge amounts of underreporting, and we can see it with a huge amounts of influx of organizations calling us for assistance because there are people on the ground that are just absolutely destitute. We think it's going to take at least the next two weeks or so to get a better understanding of just how severe the impact is, and I think we will see better, stronger numbers coming through, or higher numbers coming through, of more people that will need food assistance. So yes, I think disaster management is still really trying to get to grips with the situation there. Lots of infrastructure still hasn't been repaired. Water and electricity services have not been repaired yet in quite a number of those communities, and a number of people haven't reported to shelters because they're not aware that these services are available. And so I think over the next few days, and at least in the next 2 weeks, we are going to see those numbers increase quite dramatically.
Okay, that's Food Forward SA Managing Director Andy du Plessis. Thank you so much for your time and the work that you and your team are doing at a time when the country needs you the most. And you can go to any of the social media platforms and their website, Food Forward SA, just to find out how to get in contact with them if you are able to help or assist in any other way.